Then I'll put it on unfiltered. Hey everybody, Shane Rice and Dunk here. We're going to look at MQL reporting and how I've done that on the inbound marketing recap call. And so without further ado, I'm just going to jump to sharing my screen. Let's see here. All right, great. So on the left-hand side of what we have here is the Sisense chart that we use to report on trials by segment. And so, what I do is just come in here, update the dates, make sure that it's, the current report date. So let's see, where is the date on this? Scroll down. Maybe I need to make this window a little bit bigger.
I see your date range.
Yeah,
there it is.
And so I always do the day before just to make sure that I've got a static number that's ended, so that if somebody comes back later today and looks at it, it's not a higher number. And then once we have that, you update this, and we'll just, I tend to just to have a better look at this. I share the link, and then just pop over here and screen grab the numbers. And then what I do is plug them into this chart, or this sheet, I should say. And this runs all the calculations for me. And let me change the screen size here so you can see it better.
Does all the conversion metrics?
Yeah. So what I can do is I pop in the number here. It adds up for the quarter total here, tells us where we're at for attainment, calculates pace, what that number would look like if we, continue that pace through the end of the quarter. Also calculates, percentage of the quarter to date, fiscal year to date. And I, built all these formulas just to work with our fiscal year. So it starts February 1, ends January 31st. And then you plug in your goals here. So as we move into the new fiscal year, you'll plug those in here. And then that will translate all of this here. So, divide your number here by, all the things you see there. So it's meant to be pretty straightforward. I initially added these numbers right here, not numbers that are related to any reporting. But what I was seeing is that, as you go into the next month, if you go back and look at the last month, those numbers change. And so I try to keep them up for the current quarter, but I don't go all the way back for each quarter at this point. So I'll take these off here. And what I'll do, Dunk, is I will make you an owner of this sheet so you can
That'd be great.
Whatever you want to do with it. Let me do that now.
Yeah. Do you have anything like when I look at this, like one of the things as an example, Shane, I've been looking at is over the course of November, December, as an example. Prior to that, our pace of large MQLs was in the 20 to 22% range. I think the largest we got was 27.5%. But I did notice in November and December, they dropped about 16.5%, right? You can see that in the smaller blue, right? For each of those months compared to the prior months. So you can get it visually off of there. And that's one of the places I looked for. I just didn't know if you'd accommodated any of that trending type of information here in your Google Sheet.
No, I haven't. And I think that would be great to look at to do some additional modeling. This was really just something where, on our weekly recap call, I was waking up on Thursday morning and scrambling, trying to get the numbers right, making double checking myself, stressed out.
Oh yeah.
And just built this so that I could just plug in one number and have everything we needed. But I think that kind of
this is fantastic.
Great.
Yeah. Now you're grabbing in this, so you're just grabbing the MQLs from trials, right?
Well, no, I think this dashboard just looks at the, whatever's qualified as an MQL, and it's not really separating out trials.
Right. Okay. Got it.
And it would be great. Maybe you could add an option to filter here. So you have that.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Okay,
I'm looking at gated content and trials and paid outbound, things like that.
Great. Well, are there any other questions? Anything else I can give you as we start moving this around as far as what we're reporting on?
Well, I'll share something with you, and I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Which is one of the things that we've been looking at and working on is the relative performance of trials versus gated content, as well as looking at trial remarketing. So if somebody takes a piece of gated content and then they also take a trial, what does that conversion rate look like? So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So we've been capturing this in an issue, and this should be 180 or 184. Yeah, it's 184. And then this relates to a larger issue, which is 180. But the net of that is kind of on this visual diagram here, which is we're looking at MQLs by engagement, which ones are trial only, which ones are gated content only, how many are actually now taking both actions together. So we're using this as a proxy, right, relative to whether or not we should or should not do more of that activity. If you look at this, what becomes pretty interesting, this is MQL to SAO conversion rate, because as everybody knows, the trial's auto MQL versus other tactics, gated content, other activities have to progress to get to an MQL. But if you look at this, it's really interesting. From an MQL to SAO, free trials convert at less than 1%, 0.73% of our free trials actually are. And this is looking at things back through the last 4 or 5 months, so about 35,000 MQLs. And then if we looked at things that were gated content only, about 2.5% of people that didn't take a trial but just did gated content converted to an SAO. But the people that actually took the free trial and the gated content together as a set converted at 3.6%. So much higher, albeit we're still talking about small numbers, right?
Yeah.
That's still a pretty low kind of a number set. But the other things that impact this, as you know, is Evan's is in the process of rolling out changes to the SDR team, where we'll have a dedicated team that works new versus growth. And so we believe that these numbers will get significantly better. But I think our learning from this is the proxy learning from this so far over these last 4 or 5 months is that the free trial plus gated content as a set is a useful thing to us to pursue. The question is can we pursue it in a better fashion, leveraging email nurture, some of the remarketing tactics, et cetera. And we haven't done as much of it, right, because it doesn't have the volume yet. But I think it's a useful MVC test for us to be able to answer some of those questions, because I've had that for a while now. Do these convert better MQL to SAO than a trial alone or gated content alone? That was really the question we were trying to answer.
Well, and I think the interesting question as I look at these numbers too would be to maybe break this out by segment. Because I think it would be great to see what we see with SMB and large in particular. I think mid-market would follow closer to large, but would be my guess anyway. But yeah, this is really interesting.
Yeah, the other thing that we've been also looking at is what percentage of people that land on the trial page actually submit the trial. And so we've been looking at just through GA, right, the number of people that land on the trial pages versus the number of people that submit. And so I think what was disappointing to me was we thought that number was going to be higher. I had heard, it should be in the 50s. I think when we actually looked at it, it was in the 14 to 17% range.
Yeah.
Based on just that data. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, no, that's what I would look at. I would look at, self-managed trial. So free trial / self-managed and just look at page views versus submits on that page to come up with that number. The tricky part there is always SaaS. Once we have the Google Tag Manager set up so we can capture those logged out visitors and know that number, I think that'll give us a better sense of what's going on with SaaS. And I'm wondering if SaaS may not be a little bit higher, just because people are ready to try it right now, right? So I'm interested to see where we end up once we get that in place.
Yep. Anyway, so yeah, very helpful to have this discussion, and I would love to help take over that Google Sheet from you. I'm sure Matt and I would love that. So
great, yeah. So I've added you there. I'll when we're done with the call, I will go ahead and make you an owner, so that you can just take it over and use it as you see fit. Double check my formulas, make sure they're all right. I think they're good, but another set of eyes is always nice.
Yeah, and we've got the upstream from that too, because we also look at the velocity. So the inquired MQL velocity for trial, the velocity is virtually instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
But for other types of activities, inquired MQL can take anywhere from 2 days up to about 11 days, right, to get somebody to an MQL.
Oh wow.
So, but yeah.
Great.
Well, we've got all that in the demand gen dashboard, and I guess while you and I have some time, if you're interested in seeing the V2 of the demand gen dashboard, this will also show you some other things that we're looking at. So let me go grab that tab. Not there.
Of course.
Hold on a second here. Let me stop share for just a second while I try and find what I'm looking for here.
You taking a long weekend?
No.
Oh no.
I'm taking a weekend. So if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, you just planning for the new year? Or?
No, we got a lot of work to do. So some of the new go-to-market motions that we want to roll out for FY22, Mahesh and I are working on an epic for that to get people going on that.
I got you.
And then in addition to that, we've got I've got some job descriptions to do, and a few other things. We're also looking at pipeline velocity right now, which is really interesting. As pipeline shifts, right? How does that impact our demand generation goals and metrics and what we need to do? So there's a lot going on there. Okay, so I guess I'm not going to find it there. Let me just go ahead and get the tab open here, but I think you'll find this pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Here we go. Okay. So I think you remember I showed you the demand generation dashboards, the V1 that we really worked on with Ops and with Agnes. And really the goal is to provide a core set of analytics around of all of our paid outbound demand generation programs and really get very detailed, like how are they performing in the aggregate? What's the velocity? How are individual campaigns performing overall? What's the content? What's the activity? How well does it convert?
Mm-hmm.
So Vicky on Dara's team has been helping us do a V2 of this. And this V2 actually allows us to look at a lot more information, right? So you can actually, in a more visual kind of frame of reference. So you can see how many inquiries, how many MQLs, how many SAOs. You can see the conversion rates, right? From inquiry to MQL, MQL to SAO, SAO to close one. Cost per inquiry, cost per MQL. Whoops, that cost per SAO is pretty high, right? So these are things that we're working on. And then this also includes the velocity for each stage, 3.4 days, 26 days, 1.5 days. So there's ways that you can filter and express things out. And we were looking at this particular query, I was looking to answer some questions, but you can also get an idea here of the inquiries to MQLs to SAOs to close one. And I think as you and I were just talking about earlier, you could see our MQLs to SAO conversion rate is still pretty low overall as an organization.
Yeah.
And part of that is, as we talked about, if less than 1% of your trials convert to SAOs, then that drives, and they are a huge percentage of our total MQLs, that drives that number down. And so that's why we're looking at what else should we be doing here to help that conversion rate. So remarketing trials and content to users that are in the journey is really important because not everybody's going to respond to email. The second thing is having the SDR team be able to focus on new first order deals separate from growth deals is also going to help. So we think that's going to go up in both of those categories. But there's some pretty cool stuff down below in the dashboard here where you can actually look at velocity per campaign. And then you can actually do simple things like, and we had a campaigns table that was completely separate that you had to launch from the prior demand gen dashboard. But you can see, okay, where are we spending our money right now in terms of campaign cost, right? So no surprises here, right? If you do this query here, you can see we're spending a lot of money on CI, right, over this period of time. So CI is probably about half the spend in total, right? If you look at it from a cost perspective, you'll also see that we've been spending some money on GitOps, which is the brown area, not nearly as big as the CI area. And you'll see like Evergreen. Evergreen is some of these remarketing costs that we're talking about, right? So that's where we're kind of putting that cost in. You'll also see brand, right? So things that are coming in off of brand. That would be, as an example, we do a lot of any kind of Google SEM pay-per-click search engine marketing. We are doing branded terms, and so we're spending money on branded terms. So that would be GitLab plus, another search term combined. Right. So, but what's interesting here is that you can also say what's driving inquiries. And if you look at this, okay, now you see kind of, we're spending less on GitOps. It's driving almost as much from an inquiry perspective as we are getting on CI/CD. Oh, let's look at MQLs. Now you look at this and go, okay, well, GitOps isn't converting as well to MQL. CI still converts much better. We have a much higher volume, right, of CI MQLs. But guess what happens when you look at linear SAOs? So suddenly GitOps is actually driving almost as many SAOs as CI does. And CI, we're spending about 60% more. So, and then what that tells us is it allows us to look at that and say, okay, GitOps, right, is actually driving more opportunities for sales. We spend quite a bit more on CI/CD, but GitOps is more efficient. But if we wanted to improve GitOps, we want to improve that conversion rate to MQL. So what else can we do to improve the inquiry to MQL conversion rate? Because if we could drive a volume of MQLs consistent with what we do in CI out of GitOps, we'd have a lot more SAOs.
Yeah.
So this is just some of the things you can do in this dashboard. And it gives you visualization. It also allows you to kind of use some bubble charts to understand which tactics really do the best job of driving inquiry to MQL versus conversion versus MQL to SAO and then SAO to one. So this is a bunch of really neat features that Vicky's been building up for us as you look at tactics and personas and lead status. So even this one, which shows executives versus managers versus practitioners, right? So this actually allows us to understand the titles of the people and how they match to the campaigns.
That's great.
And then one of the coolest things that Vicky did is she created this like create your own pivot out of the data that's here. So you can just click into this and create a pivot table and do additional investigations and exploration. So that's the new V2 demand gen dashboard that I think is helping give us the additional insights that we need to set up a successful set of FY22 go-to-market motions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think looking at that chart right there at the top where you have inquiry to MQL to SAO, it might, just thinking about like quick visual ways to check. If you had that same graph but could do it by campaigns, and that way you can see what mirrors and what's different, and then look for those areas of opportunity. Because it does sound like that GitOps, what you discovered there, that's a massive opportunity.
Yeah, Mahesh and I were talking about that on Friday. The other thing that kind of you had that we didn't have yet is kind of the bar charts or the meter charts on how are we doing on our pace, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's another part of this that we have to also improve in that area. But I think this was a great MVC2 and a lot of work on this by Vicky and kind of the MOps reporting team. So
that's great. Vicky has helped out a lot on Google Analytics too. So I'm very excited to have her here and some of the things she's helped us figure out with BigQuery and just how to get that working right. So that's fantastic.
Right. And in the chat here, I've slacked you the Sisense Demand Gen V2 WIP dashboard for your perusal and playing with. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm going to copy that. Put that.
Yeah, I mean, if we could just do that and somehow figure out a way to merge inbound, but then we'd start looking like the monthly or the marketing metrics dashboard or the revised marketing metrics dashboard. But in any event.
Well, that's we got to be able to drill down and get into the data and like find those kind of inconsistencies and areas of improvement. So that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. That's all I have for today.
Yeah, me too, Dunk. Okay, well, I'll take this video and just upload it to Unfiltered and send you the link so you can share it as you need. Awesome.
You got it.
See you soon.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.